Hey everyone, you're listening to InfoQuench with Jeff
and Amy,
a podcast with tips to make your life easier.
Covering pop culture, parenting, travel, minimalism, and more.
Hey everybody, and welcome to InfoQuench. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Amy.
And this podcast, wait a minute, we got to talk about something before the podcast.
You're darn right we do.
1,000, that's the number after 999.
1,000 unique downloads.
Individual downloads. Unbelievable. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. It means the world to us. We do this because we just have fun, okay? And you guys, you get to reap all the benefits of all the amazing things that we tell you. No, I'm just joking. We thank you for coming along for the ride, basically. It's like hanging out with friends that are invisible for us.
That's right. I'm no stranger to invisible friends. I had an imaginary friend growing up.
Oh man, you got to tell everybody this individual or invisible friend's name.
Well, it was very clever.
It's
I was
very
quite clever
clever
back then. That it was.
I love it. This is just.
Well, she looked like me, only bigger.
Oh.
So her name was Big Amy.
Big Amy. And so were you
And
little Amy or were you just Amy?
I was just Amy.
Oh man,
but she
that is
lived
the
in the
best.
sewer outside. There was a manhole outside our house, and that's where she lived.
And did you go visit her and bring her things? Did you put things down the sewer?
I
offerings?
don't remember a lot of details.
Wow.
I vaguely remember what she looked like.
Did Big Amy ever turn on you?
Not that I remember.
Like a Stephen King movie?
I don't know when she disappeared.
Wow.
But she was in my life for a short time.
I don't believe I've ever had an individual, or why do I say individual?
So goes the life of an only child, I guess.
Invisible friend. I could always see my friends.
So he has 1,000 downloads.
Yes,
we
thank
are
you.
so psyched. I know
Yeah.
in the land of the podcast, that is not a lot, but for us, that's huge because this is something that we just do something creative together as a hobby to enjoy. So the fact that people are listening and enjoying too, wow, that just made our freaking year.
I don't know. I talked to Amy about having some kind of a fun little, contest or something, and she's shaking her head no. So we're not having a contest.
Because I know I'm the one who'd have to put together the whole contest.
Yeah, but it's a little bit of work.
And it's back to school time. And speaking of back to school time, so it was up in the air where our son Hux is going to be going up until, we just found out this past Friday. And so we're the end of August. So normally with my OCD brain, I would have been working on school supplies for months.
Yes.
As soon as the list became available, I would have been looking for sales and such. But because we didn't know which school he was going to, we didn't know what the list was going to be.
We had no idea. And what a list it is.
It was.
Oh my goodness.
I just have to let you know, I mean, I hate shopping in general, but I think that teachers must put one white,
You call
white
it
elephant or a unicorn thing on the list. This is one of the items on the list was a small journal notebook, but that's not it.
No. It gets more and more.
It has to be 23.1 centimeters by 18 centimeters. No, but not just that. It needs to have 72 pages.
72.
And also half the page has to be blank and the other half interlined. I don't know if that's different than lined.
Yeah.
I don't know because I don't have a degree in these.
That was pretty easy to find though when I looked for it.
And then the last piece is it also had to be green.
Yeah, it had to be green. Yeah, it's the green one.
So I couldn't find it in my location, but then Jeff went to a second location, was able to find it.
Found it right. Well, I had to ask, and they're like, "Oh, I know exactly where they're at," and they took me.
But that was really bloody specific.
It was.
That was really bloody specific.
He had that same book for kindergarten as well.
Yeah?
Yeah, for doing his letters.
Maybe it's a
stuff.
standard. I mean, we don't have a lot of experience at this. But you know what? The old Campfire Notebook was on the list, and that just warmed my coal black school supply heart.
You all know it. I think it's. I don't think it's just Canadian, but it has that.
Well, Hilroy's Canadian.
It has that sketch of a farmhouse with the water in the front and some trees on either side.
Jeff's looking at it. He's not doing this all from memory.
No.
I was trying to look up the history of it. They've been around, apparently, according to the internet, since the 1950s. I remember having them in my school supplies as a staple.
Why is it a heritage notebook though? I don't understand
I don't
why
know
it's called that.
People actually just use it for field notes.
Well, we call
campfires.
it Campfire. But there's nothing on there that says
no,
it's a
but
campfire.
if you Google it, there's some old images and they were more campfire-esque.
Yes, that's right. I remember that now. Okay, all right, that makes sense. But yeah, it warmed my heart to see it too, actually. I don't know why. Because they are really, really nice, tactile like, little notebooks to write in. It'd be great for
Oh,
poetry.
And you know what?
stuff.
I think it's great that teachers just always have that item. I wonder if that's like they have to pledge when they graduate from school to always have that item on every supply list.
I don't know.
Hilroy would be happy with that.
That's funny.
So today's topic is how to talk to kids about difficult topics.
Yes, and we have some experience with that pretty recently, just kind of.
We went to a protest, and we won't get into all the politics around what the protest was about, but I realized how many, well, I didn't realize until we got there how many questions Huxley would have about what every single sign said, and what every single sign meant. And he wanted to hold a sign, which I told him that once he was old enough to understand what a sign meant and what the message meant, and then he decided for himself whether or not that was a message he wanted to hold up, then he could
I'd say that's
make
the perfect response to him as well, because then he needs to, do a little bit of legwork, learn about these things.
Well, yeah,
He's
you don't want
6,
to
I know,
exploit
you
your
can't.
kids to just push the message that you're
can't
pushing.
Yeah,
Just,
you can't get him to
hold
do
the
that
sign.
now.
You're cute. People pay attention. But it did make me wonder. I mean, we're always confronted with questions like this as parents, and it's hard. Some of them are a little easier than others.
Mm-hmm.
Why you shouldn't steal or something like that. But when your son asks you what misogyny means, things get a little more complicated.
Things get a little more complicated. The sweat starts to flow. You're like, oh, God, how do I approach this?
Or we have, if you have somebody that who makes a racist comment.
I just say, go ask your mother every time.
Makes an offhand, a racist comment. And, how do you address that? And you want to make sure that you point out that it's not correct and explain all the why. How do you deal with, mass shootings? And they're all over the news. So these are things that we struggle with. So we figure other parents are probably struggling with them as well. So that's why we decided to do a little research. And I found a great website. Typically, I have to go to a bunch of websites to get good content put together.
Mm-hmm.
I found one called commonsensemedia.org, which was just a really great resource. And so a lot of the content from this podcast episode is going to draw from their website.
Okay.
So if you want more details, I encourage you to visit their website, because they have done some specific articles on things like maybe speaking specifically about the news or other topics. So, in the age of having news everywhere, it's hard to protect our kids from it. So we have to find ways to discuss it. And we want to make sure that our kids feel safe.
It's true. Like
we want to teach them about the world.
Like one of the topics that you just mentioned was like the shootings in the United States in the schools and stuff. I mean, he's only 6, but he sees this stuff on the TV every once in a while. I mean, we don't put it on for him to watch, but sometimes it is on, because you never know when something like that's going to happen. And he asked some pretty heavy-duty questions that needed to be answered. And how do you approach that with a 6-year-old, right? Anyway,
Well, no, and my thoughts exactly. So this website stresses that, you need to teach your kids how to gather and interpret information, how to ask questions, and, as they grow older, how to cross-check their sources so that they can grow into being critical thinkers, not just accept, what's fed to them. Because there are so many sources of information coming at them. So it's always a good idea to, as with anything, consider your child's age, what the developmental stage they're at is, and use that to sort of guide how you have your conversations.
Right.
And I mean, kids absorb information differently at different ages, and you want to make it age appropriate. So we're always going to start with the youngest ages. They range at 2 to 6 in the particular article that I looked at. And so our son is just moving out of this age group. They don't really have a lot of life experience at this point, so they don't understand complex and difficult topics. So abstract things like misogyny, cause and effect, can be really hard. Their whole center of their world is around their primary relationships, like their relationships with their mom and their dad and their grandparents or siblings. So that's what they tend to focus on. They focus on how things affect those people in their lives.
The people closest to them.
Right.
Right.
And they're sensitive to, our emotions, their parents' emotional states. if they see us worried, they worry that they've done something to make us upset.
Right.
So reassuring them continually is important. So at that age, it's very easy to manage media exposure. And this particular website does encourage you to do that. I don't know that we've always been the best at that. I think a lot of times we are. When there's a major event happening, in the world news, we often have the television on and we're following it, whether it's a hurricane, whether it's a shooting, or,
right.
We usually try to get Hux to do something else to distract him. But I mean, there's still that exposure there. If there's full on violence, we usually are pretty good at getting the television turned off. But they listen and they take in a lot more than you realize. So keeping the news at bay at a young age, limiting exposure, choosing media that's, appropriate to their age is...
no Fox News kind of thing.
No Fox News.
We don't have Fox News, I don't think.
And reassure them, that they're safe. If they do see something, if they hear about something at school, if they hear about shootings, reassure them that they're safe, that mommy and daddy are safe, the family is safe, and address their feelings. Let them know that it's okay to be scared or sad or confused, that it's natural. Those are feelings that we all have.
You got to validate those feelings so that they know that they're real.
And let them know how you feel about something too. Yeah. It's okay to let them know that something upsets you and that you don't always understand why people do the things they do. Find out what they know. Ask them first, like because you may be surprised at how much they actually already understand before you try to jump into explaining something to them. And try to break down things very simply. So like for something like a violent crime, you might say someone used a gun to shoot people. These are some specific examples from the website. For hate crimes, you might say some groups of people still aren't treated equally or fairly. For rape, which is a very difficult, child, you just keep it simple that a man hurt a woman, or it could have been a man hurt a man or something like that. But just that one person hurt another person.
Do you get more specific as the ages increase?
Yeah, so I'm going to go through a little bit how it sort of evolves as kids get older, and be conscious of your own biases. And I know that I'm become even more aware of this. I think as a culture, we're becoming more aware of this, but, we all have them. It's important for us to say, when we're describing something to our kids, to say man, woman, girl, not fat guy or homeless person or pretty little girl or describe somebody based on skin color or ethnicity, unless it has something that's relevant to the issue.
Right.
That's when you might mention, somebody's ethnicity or sexual identity, their weight or financial status, if it's relevant to the issue, but not as a, just a standard of explaining something when it's not pertinent. Using vocabulary and ideas and relationships with things that they're familiar with. So if somebody is, being charged with theft or something on television, you can say, do you remember when someone stole your bike? Or relate it to something that they've experienced themselves so that they understand. Bring it into something.
Bring it into their world so that they can understand it a little bit more clearly.
And using basic terms like mad and sad and afraid and happy, rather than, really complex emotions that they may not understand. And they're not going to understand mental illness at that age. You can say somebody was angry too much or confused and needed help, and just communicate to your kids that there's someone in charge. Say, mommy and daddy will make sure nothing bad happens to our family, or the police will catch the bad guy. Give them some...
You have to give them some kind of reassurance that, they are safe.
It's hard because I struggle with that too.
I know.
It's not just that's not always true.
Well, that's not always true at all. The people who sometimes this happens to aren't safe. They think that they're safe, just like we would if we were, in a situation, and then it's just so out of your control. It's not funny, but you don't want to tell that to a kid. You don't want to say, "Oh, like this could happen anywhere, anytime." And they're just like, "Is it going to happen now?"
I know.
Like,
I'm laughing because it is a struggle.
It is.
It's a struggle of wanting to be truthful with your kids, but also you want to protect them by making sure that they're knowledgeable. of what's the risks are in the world, but you also don't want to scare the crap out of them.
No.
By telling
It's a
them.
fine line for sure. And yeah.
So then when they get to a little bit older, it changes a bit. So ages 7 to 12 is sort of the next age group, the tweens, where they have a little bit more abstract thinking skills, more experience. They're able to express themselves better.
Mm-hmm.
They're able to understand more difficult topics. And it's a time when they're also starting to sort of separate from their parents. Oh, a little part of my heart just broke.
Yeah, just becoming a little bit more independent and moving out
they're going into
the
puberty and they're interacting with media more independently.
Big time.
So they may have access,
to a telephone.
Telephone.
Listen to me. To a telephone.
They might call somebody up and ask about the media.
If not, they'll find a phone booth.
So like the British that have telephones.
I know. Hello.
But violent video games. They may come in contact with pornography or, just other distressing news or online hate speech or bullying. So they need to be able to discuss these things with you without feeling shame or embarrassment.
So that's a good point too, right? You want to lay these building blocks early in life so that they can talk to you at any point during their life and feel comfortable. Like you start early, and then hopefully they continue to do it when they hit their teens, which is primarily when they're trying to like break free, usually from the parental control.
Yes.
Would you say?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, you're right. I mean, it starts at the youngest age, and I mean, we talk about teaching our children the right names for body parts and how important that is in protecting them against abuse down the road, because it's a real deterrent for pedophiles when a child knows how to say that somebody touched their penis or their anus versus somebody just touched my bum. So those types of conversations can happen as early as they're learning words, right? To learn the proper words for their body parts. So we may do a future episode specifically on that. I feel it's a very important topic, just, how to protect your children from pedophiles and predators, and how to, educate them.
Steps you can take to, mitigate that happening,
Right. And it's a really crappy, scary world for kids. So anything that we can do to arm them is all the better. So back to just talking again about just difficult topics in general. Just laying the groundwork for them to feel comfortable to ask you questions. So it's sort of, at this age, they're still very likely to come to you if they've heard about something frightening. So if you've laid that groundwork, their chances are they're going to come and ask you. So, kind of wait for the right moment. If they approach you, make sure that you take the time and sit down and have the conversation. Decide, how much do they want to discuss. If they don't bring it up, don't feel that you have to broach difficult subjects until they ask.
Right.
Unless there's something, imminent that's concerning. But just in general, a lot of times it's best for it to occur organically.
Naturally,
and for them to start the conversation. Find out what they know. It's the same as when they're a younger age. Ask them what they've heard. Ask them if their friends at school have been talking about it.
Right.
What are their friends saying? And that kind of gives you a bit of lays a groundwork or framework for where they're at already. And then you can build on that, and maybe dispel some of the myths that they've heard, and sort of tailor your answer that way.
Like you said too, you'd be surprised at what they do know at earlier ages.
Oh, I know.
It's insane.
We were watching television, and a Casino New Brunswick commercial came on. And so, of course, Huck saw that they were playing games, and he's like, "Can we go there and play games?" And then I was trying to explain, well, you have to pay money to play those games, and it's for a chance to win money. And he's like, "Oh, that's great. You win money?" And I'm like, "Well, but most times you spend more money than you would ever win." And he's like, "Well, why does anybody go there?" And I thought,
that's great.
Yeah, you're good point.
Pretty logical conclusion, kid. You want to work here?
That was our discussion about gambling. But you never know when that type of conversation is going to come up, right? And we did talk about it. We did talk a little bit more about gambling and how there are people who have a hard time with not stopping once they start playing those types of games.
It's an addiction.
Then other people can go and play just a little bit and have fun.
We'll have to talk to him about addictions, because he seems to have an addiction to his Pokemon cards.
I know, which I do not even understand.
Right. Anyway. Another topic altogether.
Answer questions, when they're 7 to 12, answer the questions simply and directly. Don't over explain, if you feel it might make them more scared, but make sure that you answer the questions that do come up.
Yeah.
I have a tendency to over explain with our son sometimes.
But you know what? You always answer the heavier questions that he has. Like we try to answer every question he asks, because how otherwise is he going to learn? He doesn't have like a nucleus of friends to learn from, not until he gets to school, I guess. But
Right.
Anyway, we are his,
We're a source.
We're his sounding board too,
So it's important as parents, create a safe space for those types of discussion. Let them know that those topics are hard for even adults to talk about. But say, let's talk. Let them know that you're not going to get mad, that they should feel free to ask you whatever they want, that there's no reason to be embarrassed. As with the whole stealing and comparing it to something in their world, give them some context or some circumstances around an issue so that they can understand it a little bit better. Some of this stuff can be pretty abstract, like even the concept of addiction can be pretty abstract.
Oh, yeah.
But if you can bring it back to something like, how you love your Pokemon cards so much?
Yeah. You're always asking us to play, and we're not addicted, but you are.
So another example might be something around like if it was a mass shooting, you could explain that the person who did the killing probably had problems in his brain that confused his thinking. If it was race-based, you might say some people believe strongly that different colored skin people are better than others. And without correct information, they sometimes do crimes based on that, thinking that they're justified, but that's not right. Address their curiosity. So if they stumble across some grown-up material online...
not pornography.
No, actually, the example is pornography.
Oh, okay. Then pornography. They stumble across pornography. What happens?
So if it's like online pornography. Well, I'll give you the exact, I guess. So you can explain that it's something that grown-ups sometimes look at. Some grown-ups look at it, but it's not about love or romance. And it's possible it can give you the wrong idea about sex. And if you want to learn more about sex, I can give you some books to look at and we can talk about it and you can ask questions.
But not at 6.
This is the 7 to 12 age range.
Okay. Yeah.
But I mean, kids can get pretty darn specific.
They can. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll ask. I remember being in sex ed class where they did the whole thing where you got to anonymously write questions on a piece of paper.
Oh, yes. What kind of questions?
Your poor sex ed teacher had to answer it. They were just, I can't even say them, but they're just awful, awful things.
Really?
That I'm sure the kids just wrote just to embarrass.
I do remember that. I distinctively remember that as well, but I don't remember.
Not all of them were awful. I guess as
I just
kids,
remember
we
the
thought they were
process.
awful.
Yeah.
Anyways, that just kind of popped into my head. So, yes. And, let them know that if there's some serious topics that they want to explore, help them do some research into some good, sources that are reliable. Help them learn, what current events are taking place.
Yeah.
And again, to be critical thinking and when they're reading that material. And be sensitive to their emotions. You never know what's going to upset them. So, you can say, I feel angry when I know someone got hurt. How does that make you feel? Does that make you feel angry? How are you feeling right now? Ask open-ended questions, Ask them, what did they hear? What did that make you think?
Yeah.
Why did you think that? With older kids, you might say, do you think that
this is right or wrong?
Yeah. Do you think families from other backgrounds would view this the same way we did?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that news media hypes up stories that people will pay attention to?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that the story is getting too much airtime? Do you think it's getting too much play? So again, encourage that critical thinking. And tell them during a really horrific event to look for the positives. And I've heard this a lot of times. Like, look for the people doing good.
Yeah.
When
look for the heroes in the moment.
The Boston bombing. Look for the people who are running around trying to help people and try to focus on the heroes.
Yeah.
And then think about ways that we can help. As individuals in that situation. And then when kids become teens, they are much more engaged independently. They're interacting with it. You know, they may be commenting on things. They're going to hear a lot of difficult topics. And so the important thing is just encourage open dialogue at that time. Let them know that they can ask questions. Tell them to test their opinions. You know, that you may not agree on everything, but that you're still interested in what they have to say.
And make them aware that their opinions and what they think is right could be, in fact, wrong.
That's right.
You know?
That's right, honey.
That's wrong. That's right.
No,
that's
you're
wrong.
right. I mean, I think we've.
Yeah.
I remember going through that period in my life.
Oh yeah, you thought you knew everything.
Oh yeah, when you just started to.
Yeah.
You're going through this
I'm still there. Anyway.
Like a lot of times when kids hit university or, you know, in
You're not the
post-secondary,
boss of me.
and they start doing, you know, copious amounts of reading, and really just their mind expands into a whole new world of
days.
ideas and thoughts. And then they do start to think that they know everything.
Yeah.
But, you know, have good conversation. Ask them, what do they think about police brutality? You know, that might be a topic to bring up. Ask them what they know about it. Who do they think is at fault? Why do they think that person's
Make them
at fault?
focus also on the pros and the cons of an argument.
Yes.
You know, so that they can understand the negative and the positive aspects of every argument that they find themselves in. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, it's important to understand where the other person's coming from, right? When you're having that type of discussion. And feel free to admit when you don't know something. I mean,
Yeah.
I do that all the time. I'm like, let's Google it because I don't know.
I know. The only thing that I know is I know nothing.
Yeah.
I believe it was Socrates that said that. I don't know.
Sometimes it's the most simple things that I'm like, I get asked and I have no idea, and I feel like I'm just like, I probably should know the answer to this.
Oh, I know.
But anyway, it can be.
Like so one day, I think Huxley asked, "Why are there so many different kinds of clouds?" I'm like, "There just are. I don't know. They're just in the sky and they look differently, and I don't know."
Well, you got to ask that. I get asked, when was the first person born?
Oh, that's a good
How
one.
long ago? Were they alive at the same time as the dinosaurs?
Oh yeah.
Where did they live? What did they look like? Were they a boy or a girl? That was
Wow.
a very complicated discussion,
Mm-hmm.
but I worked through it.
You did it.
I worked
You
through
did
it. And let them consider how complex some of these difficult topics are. You know, again, teenagers are able to discuss social issues, politics, tradition, all kinds of things. So, you know, have those conversations. It's great. They'll give you great insight. It's a great opportunity to share your own values with them. And, you know, why you stand on particular issues, like when you're at a protest, why you might be at that protest and choose to hold up a sign, and why you felt so strongly to speak out about that particular
I think it's important
topic.
too to let them know a little bit more about, like you said, how you think about things. And you could even teach them more about you as a person that they may not know. Because we know our parents, but we don't really know a lot about them. At least I don't. You do, but you don't, So the more you can teach them about you, the stronger your bond will be and everything.
Yeah, it's a great time to let them know how you feel about different things and why, and what experiences in your own life shaped the ideas, the values that you have.
Mm-hmm.
So teens can be really cynical, but they can also be idealistic. And one of the great things this article sort of finishes with is that if anything is going to get better, it's this generation coming through that's going to do it.
It's true.
So we have to show them that we trust them to do the job, and ask them things like, if
Pass
you were
the
in
torch.
charge, what would you do
Yeah.
first to try to solve this issue, and how would you do it? So hopefully that gave you some good ideas to start those hard conversations on difficult topics.
So get out there and have those hard conversations with your kids.
Or avoid them at all costs, whatever works.
Whatever works. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening.
Be sure to visit InfoQuench.com to subscribe and catch up on past episodes.
You can also check out InfoQuench on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Till next time.